I torched the family legacy with a single match, watching the flames lick up the walls of the bakery that was supposed to be mine, the one my grandfather built from nothing in the heart of Brooklyn, while my parents screamed my name into the night like I was the monster they'd created. It started with a lie so deep it carved out my soul. My brother, the golden boy, had killed a man in a drunk driving crash 4 years ago, and I took the fall for him, spending 2 years in a cage, so he could chase his delusions of grandeur. Now, as the sirens wailed closer, I didn't run. I stood there smiling, because revenge isn't about winning. It's about making them taste the ashes of every dream they stole from me. My name is Poppy Harlan, and if you think family is blood, you're dead wrong. It's the knife they twist when your back's turned. I grew up in the shadow of Harlan's Hearth, that old brick bakery on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, the kind of place where the air always smelled like fresh sourdough and cinnamon, and the locals lined up before dawn for loaves that my grandfather baked with hands scarred from the ovens. Grandpa Harlan wasn't some soft-hearted immigrant story. He was a Marine who'd come home from Korea missing 2 fingers and a chunk of his faith in humanity, but he poured it all into that bakery. "This is legacy, kid," he'd say, flour-dusted knuckles wrapping the counter as I perched on a stool, too small to reach the dough mixer. Not the kind you inherit, the kind you fight for. By 18, I'd mapped out my life like a battle plan: culinary school at the Institute of Culinary Education, nights slinging pastries at trendy Williamsburg spots to pay tuition, and every spare minute back at the hearth, tweaking recipes until they sang. Mom and Dad, Eleanor and Frank, though they preferred Ellie and Frankie like they were still hip college kids, watched from the sidelines, nodding along. They ran a little accounting firm out of the brownstone next door, crunching numbers for small businesses, but the bakery was their safety net, the thing that kept the Harlan name alive. Dad would joke, "Poppy's the soul of the place. Without her, it's just burnt toast." Mom would laugh, her pearls clicking, and ruffle my hair like I was still that wide-eyed girl. Then there was Jax, my brother, 2 years older, the one who'd always been the sparkler to my steady candle. Jax Harlan, charming as hell, with that crooked grin and eyes that could talk you out of your last dollar. He flunked out of community college after 1 semester of entrepreneurial studies, then bounced from gig to gig, bartending in the East Village, hawking overpriced NFTs during the crypto boom, even a stint as a lifestyle coach, peddling protein shakes to gym bros in Bushwick. But he had dreams, oh boy, did he have dreams. Dreams that involved leather jackets, rooftop parties, and scaling the family brand into some artisanal empire. "The hearth isn't just bread, Pops," he'd say, slinging an arm around me after too many IPAs at the local dive. "It's a vibe, a movement. We could franchise this shit coast to coast." I humored him, because that's what little sisters do. But deep down, I knew the truth. The bakery was mine. Grandpa's will made it clear, 50% to me. The rest split between Mom and Dad, with Jax getting a token share in the accounting firm because the boy's got numbers in his blood, as Dad put it. Jax never baked a day in his life. His idea of helping was showing up hungover on Sundays to taste test and critique my pain o' chocolate like he was Gordon Ramsay reincarnated. The betrayal hit like a sucker punch on a rainy Tuesday in October, 3 years ago. I was 27, fresh out of a brutal shift, elbows deep in dough, when Mom called me into the back office. Dad was there too, fiddling with his tie, avoiding my eyes. Jax lounged in the corner chair, smirking like he'd just won the lottery. "Family meeting," Mom said, her voice that fake bright tone she used for bad news, like when she told me my goldfish had gone to fish heaven. They laid it out cold. Grandpa's will was being contested. Some bullshit about undue influence. Jax had dug up evidence that I'd manipulated the old man in his final days, feeding him stories about Jax's instability to sway the shares. It was a lie so thin it crumbled under scrutiny, but Jax had a silver-tongued lawyer from Manhattan who'd spun it into gold. The judge, some crony of Dad's from the VFW, saw it their way. The bakery? Repurposed. Jax's vision, Harlan's Hearth 2.0, a hipster haven with oat milk lattes, avocado toast flights, and Instagram-worthy neon signs saying, "Rise and grind." My 50%? Vaporized, folded into a family trust, that Jax now controlled. I laughed. Not the haha kind, the hollow, what's left to lose bark that echoes in your chest. You're giving him my dream? After everything? Dad shifted, mumbling about fresh starts and Jax's potential. Mom patted my hand, her rings cold against my skin. It's for the best, Poppy. You'll find your own path. Jax just grinned wider, like a wolf eyeing lamb chops.
Small, sis.
This is bigger than us. We're building an empire. That night, I drove aimlessly through the city, the Williamsburg Bridge lights blurring in the wipers, radio blasting some old Springsteen about ghosts in the heartland. I ended up at Coney Island, the boardwalk deserted, waves crashing like accusations. That's when the first crack in the facade appeared, not from them, but from me. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the voicemails I'd buried deep. Jax's slurred apologies from 4 years back, the night of the crash. It was freshman year for me at IC. Jax, 20, already deep in the party scene. He'd borrowed my beat-up Honda Civic for a quick drive to a rave in the meatpacking district. Quick turn to catastrophic. 3 a.m., he'd wrapped the car around a pole on the BQE, killing his passenger, a kid named Tyler from his old high school crew. Jax walked away with scratches. Tyler didn't. Blood alcohol .18. Manslaughter, easy. But Jax called me, sobbing. Pops, they'll ruin me. The family. Please. So, I did what little sisters do. I lied. Said it was me behind the wheel, borrowing it back for a late-night study run. Pleaded down to reckless endangerment, served 24 months at Rikers, 2 years of my prime, learning to braid hair with contraband string and dodging whispers about the Harlan girl who drove drunk. I took the fall so Jax could get clean, enroll in that half-assed college program. Mom and Dad? They thanked me with a GoFundMe that raised enough for my commissary fees and a used laptop. You're the strong one, Mom whispered during visits, her eyes wet. Dad nodded, proud as punch. Jax? He sent postcards from rehab, all I owe you, sis. Now, as I stared at the dark Atlantic, the weight of it hit. They'd known. All along. Jax confessed to them months after the plea deal, when the guilt ate him up. They buried it deeper than I did, hired the lawyer to seal records, paid off Tyler's family with a settlement from the bakery's rainy day fund. And when it came time to divvy the legacy, they handed it to the monster I'd protected, like my sacrifice was just another line item on the balance sheet. I didn't cry. I plotted. Revenge isn't a flash fire. It's a slow bake, rising until it overflows the pan. First step. I quit the hearth on the spot. No 2 weeks' notice. Just my apron tossed on the counter like a gauntlet. Tell Jax good luck with the vibe, I said, voice steady as steel. Mom gasped. Dad looked like I'd slapped him. Jax just laughed, that easy charm masking the flicker of fear in his eyes. You'll be back, Pops. Family always comes home. I moved to a shoebox apartment in Bed-Stuy, waitressed at a soul food joint to pay rent, and started scraping together a war chest. Culinary school debt? Paid off with overtime and pride. New recipes? Tested in my hot plate kitchen, flavors sharp as grudges. Ghost pepper brioche, salted caramel with a bitter twist. But the real work was intel. I haunted the hearth's periphery, chatting up old suppliers at the Fulton Street Market, eavesdropping on Jax's investor meetings from the alley dumpster. He was burning through cash like kindling, fancy espresso machines gathering dust, influencers ghosting after freebies, the neighborhood regulars boycotting because it ain't Harlan's no more. Jax's flip started small. 1 month, he'd tweet about honoring the roots with a vintage oven install. The next, he'd get the place for a poke bowl station because Brooklyn's overbred. Suppliers whispered to me. Late payments, bounce checks. Jax charming his way out of liens with promises of equity shares that never materialized. Mom and Dad? They enabled it, co-signing loans against the brownstone, turning a blind eye because Jax is trying. By spring, the cracks showed. Yelp reviews tanked. Used to be soul food for the soul, now it's soulless. Foot traffic halved. Jax doubled down. Wilder flips. hiring a TikTok chef for viral challenges that ended in food fights, then firing him for creative differences. I watched from afar, my own side hustle blooming, Poppy's Pantry, a ghost kitchen out of a shared commercial space in Crown Heights. Delivery only, word of mouth only, recipes that whispered of the hearth but twisted sweeter, sharper. Orders trickled in from ex-customers griping about Jax's experiments. The first real jab came on my birthday. A text from Mom. Jax is expanding. Loft space in Dumbo.
Come celebrate.
Attached, a photo of the hearth sign, rebranded with neon flames and Jax grinning beside it, arm around some venture capitalist type. I replied with a single emoji, a middle finger, because why not lean into the petty? But inside it burned. That loft. The one I'd scouted for my own pop-up years ago, dreaming of exposed brick and skyline views for intimate baking classes. I didn't go. Instead, I called in a favor from Rico, the old baker who'd trained under Grandpa. Sabotage, he asked, voice gravelly over the line. Nah, girl. Karma's got its own timer. But he slipped me the books, off-the-record ledgers showing Jax cooking the numbers, inflating sales to woo investors. Embezzlement, small scale, but sticky. I filed it away, not for the cops. Too clean, too merciful, but for the moment it could gut them. Summer hit like a fevered dream, humidity thick as betrayal. Jax's empire teetered, a health inspection scare from undertrained staff, a viral video of him yelling at a barista over a messed-up pour-over. The VCs pulled out, leaving IOUs. Mom started calling, voice thin. Just checking on your brother, Poppy.
He's
struggling. Dad emailed financials, red ink bleeding through spreadsheets. I archived them, silent. Then the crash, the real one. Late August, a supplier lien foreclosed on the hearth's equipment. Ovens seized at dawn. Jax lived tweeting his plight, like a martyr. The neighborhood mourned in comments. Harlan's was family. This ain't right. I could have stepped in then, played the hero with a buyout offer. But heroes don't get revenge. They get stepped on. Instead, I waited. And when the call came, Mom, hysterical, Poppy, we need you. I let it ring twice before answering. What took you so long? They came crawling that first weekend in September, the air still heavy with the ghost of summer storms, thunder rumbling like unspoken apologies over the East River. I'd upgraded to a slightly less shoebox walk-up in Clinton Hill, still rent-controlled, still smelling faintly of the Indian family's curry from downstairs, but it had a fire escape where I could smoke and stare at the skyline, plotting constellations of payback. The buzzer sounded at noon sharp, like they'd rehearsed the timing to catch me off guard. I didn't. Mom stood there first, rain-damp coat clutched like a shield, Dad behind her with that hangdog look he'd worn since the will reading. Jax brought up the rear, hoodie zipped to his chin, eyes darting like he expected me to swing a rolling pin. Poppy, Mom started, voice cracking on the edges. Can we come in? It's important. I held the door half open, leaning against the frame in my paint-splattered overalls, mid-renovation on a custom rolling cart for Poppy's Pantry. Important like stealing my life, or important like begging for scraps? The words hung there, sharp as the switchblade I kept in my boot for late-night deliveries. Mom flinched. Dad cleared his throat. Jax just shoved his hands in his pockets, muttering, "Come on, Pops. Let it go." I let them in because mercy is the first lie of revenge. Make them think there's a door, then slam it on their fingers. The apartment was a shrine to spite. Walls papered with hearth clippings, my ghost kitchen menus framed like war trophies, a single photo of Grandpa on the fridge, his eyes judging from beyond. They perched on the sagging couch, the one I'd salvaged from a Bushwick curb, while I brewed coffee in a French press, strong, black, no cream for their fragile stomachs. "Lay it out," I said, handing over mismatched mugs, settling cross-legged on the floor like we were kids again. Mom started, words tumbling. The foreclosure, the lawsuits from suppliers, Jax's bad decisions snowballing into bankruptcy. The loft in Dumbo, leased on a handshake to a ghost investor who'd vanished with the deposit. The hearth, gutted, ovens gone, The space sublet to a vape shop because rent's rent. Dad chimed in with figures, 6 figures in debt, the brownstone on the chopping block. We need a Hail Mary, Poppy. Your pantry. It's buzzing. Folks are talking. You could. Absorb the brand. Save the name. Jack shifted, finally speaking up, voice low and oily. Look, I fucked up. Big time. But it's not just me. The market's brutal, sis. Inflation, TikTok algorithms. I was innovating. He leaned forward, that old charm flickering. We team up. Harlan's Hearth by Poppy and Jax. Dual vision. You handle the baking soul, I do the scaling. Boom. Empire restored. I sip my coffee, letting the silence stretch until it snapped. Innovating? Like embezzling from the till to fund your coke habit? Or flipping the menu weekly to chase trends that died in 2022? His face paled. Mom gasped. I'd hit the vein. Rico's ledgers didn't lie. Jack sputtered. That's not. You don't know the half. But I cut him off. I know enough. Like how you confessed the crash to them after I did your time. How they paid off Tyler's mom with Grandpa's emergency fund. How you all decided the bakery was your redemption arc, not mine. The room went tomb still. Dad's mug trembled. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Jax's eyes narrowed, flipping from contrite to cornered rat. You think you're clean? You let them lock you up. Played the martyr for Instagram likes. Lies, all of it. I deleted my socials years ago, but it stung the way betrayal echoes. At least I own my shit. I shot back. You? You're a chameleon, Jax. Golden boy to fuck up to visionary, back to beggar. What's next, preacher? They left with pleas hanging, Mom hugging me too tight, Dad promising to make it right, Jax slinking out with a glare that said unfinished business. I locked the door, heart pounding not from anger, but the thrill, the first taste of power shifting. That night, I cranked up the oven in my shared kitchen space, baked a batch of midnight Black Forest cake, cherries tart as grudges. Delivered samples to the old hearth crowd via discreet DMs. Remember the real Harlans? This is what it tasted like. Word spread like yeast. Orders doubled, then tripled. I hired a part-timer, Lila, a tattooed vet from the Bronx with a knack for laminated doughs, and we hit capacity, ghosting deliveries from a beat-up van painted with subtle hearth motifs. Jax noticed. His texts escalated from wheedling to wheedling worried. Heard you're killing it. Dinner? Talk collab. I ghosted back. October brought the first flip from the family flank. Dad showed up solo at my drop-off spot near the Barclays Center, pre-game rush hour, holding a manila envelope like a white flag. Contingency, he called it, a notarized deed transferring the Brownstones' partial ownership to me in exchange for bailing out the bakery. No Jax mentioned, just us, father and daughter, numbers on paper. It's clean, Poppy.
No strines. Just.
Family. I scanned it under the van's dome light, ink fresh, signatures wobbly.
Clean?
Bullshit. Buried in the fine print, a lien clause tying it to the hearth's debts if I didn't integrate operations within 90 days. Integrate meaning swallow Jax's mess hole. I handed it back, smiling that Harlan smile. Crooked, unyielding. Tell Mom I said thanks for the kindling. He drove off, taillights fading into traffic, and I wondered if he'd cry in the car. Jax's countermove came swift, scheming as ever. A week later, the hearth's old Facebook page, dormant since the rebrand, lit up with posts, throwback photos of Grandpa, captions dripping nostalgia. Harlan's heart calls home, Poppy's recipes, Jax's vision. Join the revival. Stolen shots from my deliveries, blurred but recognizable. He was poaching my thunder, flipping victim to visionary again, rallying the diehards with pleas for unity. The comments tore me, half cheering the reunion, half calling bullshit. Jax ruined it once. Why trust him? I could have lawyered up, cease and desist the IP theft, but that was playing defense. Instead, I went nuclear, leaked the ledgers to a food blogger with a grudge against hipster flops. Inside Harlan's, embezzlement and erasure, it headlined, anonymous source cited. Shares exploded. Jax's phone blew up with reporters. He called at 2 a.m., voice slurry, booze, or desperation. You bitch. That was low, even for you. Flip. From brother to enemy, charm curdled to curse.
Low?
You killed a man, and I buried the body, metaphorically. You stole my blood, and I let you.
This.
I laughed cold. This is interest. He hung up, but not before the sob, real, raw, the boy I'd once protected peeking through. Mom's next play was the emotional gut punch, a care package to my door, wrapped in butcher paper like bakery parcels. Inside, Grandpa's old recipe journal, dog-eared pages smelling of vanilla and regret, and a letter in her looping script. We were wrong, Poppy. Jax was wrong. But blood is blood. Forgive, for him, for us. Enclosed, a check, $5,000, seed money for the pantry. I burned the letter in the sink, watched the flames dance, but cashed the check. Mercy? No ammunition. By Halloween, the scales tipped. Poppy's pantry hit 5-figure months, a waitlist for custom orders, whispers of a brick-and-mortar spot in Bed-Stuy. The hearth? A husk, the vape shop inside hawking knockoff loaves from Cisco. Jax flipped again, public mea culpa on Insta Live, teary-eyed in a hearth apron. I let the family down. Time to step back. Stepping back to what? A consulting gig, I sniffed, lining up the next grift. They reconvened at Thanksgiving, uninvited, turkey thawing on my counter like an olive branch. One meal, Dad begged through the intercom. No business.
Lies.
Over dry bird and canned cranberry, it spilled. Jax in therapy, finally. Debts restructured, a plea for me to front the hearth revival, my recipes, their name, shared equity. We're equals now, Mom insisted, eyes pleading. Jax nodded, subdued, the chameleon in camouflage. I get it, Pops. I owe you everything. I carved the bird slow, knife steady. Equals? In America, equals means leverage, and I held the cleaver. One condition, I said, plating seconds. Full control.
No vetoes, no flips.
Or walk. They agreed, too quick, hook swallowed. That night, as they cleared dishes, I toasted silently to the twist I'd planted, the deed I'd signed back in Dad's van. Forged, with a hidden clause voiding their liens if debts hit default. Default loomed, courtesy of my anonymous tips to the IRS on Jax's off-book investors. Winter crept in, frost on the fire escape, and the bakery rose from ashes, not theirs, mine. We reopened the hearth under my banner, Harlan's Hearth, restored. No neon, just warm lights and the original ovens, bought back cheap at auction. Jax consulted from afar, his flips muted to suggestions I ignored. Mom and Dad handled books, humbled, their decisions controversial even to them. Had they saved the legacy or just delayed the grave? But as crowds returned, bread steaming in paper bags, I felt the yum pull. Was this revenge or just survival? Jax's eyes at the soft opening, grateful, then gleaming, hinted at more schemes. And buried deeper, the secret I'd kept even from myself. Tyler's mom had reached out last month, post-leak. Your brother's paying now, she'd said, voice steel. But you? You carried it longest. January bit hard that year, the kind of New York cold that seeps into your bones and stays, turning every breath into a negotiation with the wind. The hearth hummed under my watch, lines out the door by 7 a.m., the air thick with yeast and second chances, but it was a fragile piece, the kind built on eggshells and unpaid debts. I'd hired back Rico full-time, his gravel laugh booming as he kneaded dough beside Lila, and we'd added a coffee bar with beans from a Queens roaster who owed Grandpa a favor. Reviews glowed. Poppy Harlan's brought the soul back, better than ever. But every like was a reminder. This was mine by conquest, not birthright. Jax played his part, the dutiful prodigal, showing up for shifts in a monogrammed apron, charming customers with stories he'd cribbed from my childhood. Poppy and me, we used to fight over the mixer. He'd quip, winking at the soccer moms. They ate it up, literally devouring my rye loaves slathered in cultured butter. But I saw the flips. Mornings he'd arrive late, reeking of last night's bar tabs. Afternoons, he'd pitch upgrades like matcha-infused croissants that clashed with the classics. Trends, pops, gotta evolve or die. I'd nod, file it under noted, then scrap it. Control was my currency, and I wasn't spending it on his whims. Mom and Dad orbited like moons in eclipse, helpful but hovering. Mom restocked shelves with military precision, her pearls swapped for a hairnet. Dad balanced books in the back, his tie loosened, glasses perpetually fogged. They avoided the crash, that capital C elephant, but it loomed, Tyler's ghost in every fender-bender headline, every DUI PSA on the subway. One night, closing up, Mom cornered me by the proofing racks. "We're proud, Poppy." "Really? But Jax. He's trying. For you." Her hand on my arm, soft as dough. I pulled away gentle. "Trying's free, Mom. Trust costs extra." The scheming resurfaced mid-month. Jax's latest flip slithering in via email, a partnership proposal from a Soho developer sniffing around for a Harlan's pop-up chain. Equity split 60 to 40 his favor, for vision. Attached, projections glossy as his lies, sales ballooning to absurdity. I forwarded it to Dad with a post-it. "Veto?" He called an emergency huddle that evening, the four of us crammed in the office that still smelled of Jax's old cologne, sandalwood and deceit. "It's opportunity," Jax argued, pacing like a caged fox, hands slicing air. "We franchise LA, Miami, hell, Tokyo. Poppy's recipes go global." Mom nodded tentative, eyes on me for approval. Dad hemmed. "Numbers look solid, but..." I let the silence build, then dropped the bomb. "Solid like the IRS audit I tipped them off to last week? Your off-books LLC, Jax, the one funneling hearth cash to your consulting side hustle?" His face drained, flipping from pitchman to panicked. "You wouldn't." But I had. Anonymous Form 3949, mailed from a Midtown Dropbox. "Wouldn't I? You flipped the will on me. Fair's fair." The room fractured. Mom gasped, "Poppy, no, family doesn't." Dad rubbed temples, muttering about consequences. Jax lunged verbal, venom spilling. "You think you're saint? You confess to that crash for glory, little sis. Martyr complex, that's your drug." The lie landed like a slap, but I countered with truth, voice low. "Glory? I did it for you, idiot. And you repaid it by gutting Grandpa's grave." He deflated, shoulders slumping, the chameleon shedding skin to reveal the scared kid underneath. "I was drowning, Pops. The guilt. It ate me. The business was my out." We tabled the proposal, truce fragile as spun sugar. But the audit hit days later. Agents in cheap suits, combing ledgers, freezing accounts. The hearth stuttered, suppliers on hold, payroll delayed. I covered it from pantry profits, silent ledger of my leverage, but the stress etched lines on all of us. Mom took to baking at dawn, channeling regret into baguettes. Dad chain-smoked on the stoop, coughing apologies to the wind. Jax? He vanished for a week. Space, he texted, resurfacing hollow-eyed, claiming AA meetings and a sponsor named Sal. February thawed the ice, but not the chill. Valentine's rush packed the shop, heart-shaped tarts, rosewater eclairs, couples cooing over counters. I caught Jax slipping samples to a brunette influencer, whispering, "Exclusive collab," his grin back in full wattage. Flip, from penitent to player. I pulled him aside post-shift, alley damp with melting slush. "Boundaries, Jax. Or you're out." He leaned in, breath minty over regret. "You need me, Pops. The charm, the hustle. Face it, you're the baker, I'm the brand." I shoved him back, not hard but enough. "Brand? You're the cancer. And I'm the chemo." That night, alone with the ovens cooling, I dug out Tyler's file, the one I'd printed from public records, his smiling yearbook photo haunting my drawer. What if I'd let Jax rot? Would the hearth still stand? The secret gnawed. I'd borne his crime not just for blood, but because I believed in redemption. American dream bullshit. Pull yourself up, forgive and forget. But forgiveness is a luxury for the unbetrayed. The controversial decision dropped like a gauntlet mid-month. Jax's Hail Mary, as he called it. A podcast invite, food felons, redemption in the kitchen, some true crime foodie show hosted by a disgraced chef. He wanted to go public. The crash, the cover-up, me as co-conspirator in the lie. Catharsis. He pitched over lukewarm diner coffee, eyes earnest for once. We own it, flip the narrative. Harlan's as the comeback story, flawed but fierce. Mom backed it, tears in her eyes. Healing, Poppy. For all of us. Dad crunch numbers, viral potential, sponsorships. I stared into my mug, steam rising like doubts. Controversial? Hell yes. Airing family dirty laundry on a platform that monetized misery, dragging Tyler's name through the mud for clicks. Polarizing. Heroes or hustlers. Victims or villains. But the twist, if we confessed, statutes might reopen. My old plea scrutinized.
Risky, reckless, pure Jax.
No, I said finally, voice cracking the diner's hum. We bury it deeper. Or not at all. He flipped, hurt to furious. Coward. Hiding behind ovens like Mom. Mom flinched. Dad sighed. The check came. We paid separate. Spring teased early. Crocuses pushing through concrete, but tension coiled tighter. The audit cleared, minimal fines, thanks to my cooperation. But trust frayed. Jax's flips accelerated. One day pitching eco-packaging, the next ghosting shifts for networking. I documented it all, timestamps and texts, building my exit ramp. The hearth thrived, expanded hours, a loyalty app, but success soured with suspicion. Was I saving legacy, or enabling the snake? Then the bomb. Tyler's mom, Maria, at the counter one drizzly afternoon. Gray streaks in her hair, eyes like polished obsidian. Saw the leak, she said, no preamble, sliding a coffee order across. Knew it was you. I froze, apron strings suddenly tight. She wasn't angry. Resigned, American weary. Jack's paying restitution now, scraps from his empire. But you carried my boy's ghost longest. She paid cash, exact change, and left with a plain black coffee. No forgiveness, no absolution, just truth, bitter as drip. That evening, family dinner at the brownstone. First in months, forced by Mom's neutral ground. Turkey tetrazzini from a recipe I'd tweaked, wine flowing loose. Jax dominated, animated about a pivot, ghost kitchen tie-in with a meal kit service. Poppy's twists, my branding millions. I watched him, the flipper. Charming host one bite, schemer the next. Mid-meal, he dropped it casual. Heard from Maria today. Fork clatter. Mom's wine glass trembled. What? Dad's voice flat. Jack shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Ran into her. She's cool, says we're square. Lie, he'd stalked her on LinkedIn, fishing for dirt. But it cracked us. Accusations flew. Mom sobbing about enough secrets. Dad slamming fists on oak. I stood, chair scraping. This ends now. Hearth's mine, full buyout, or I walk and take the recipes. Controversial? Utterly, dismantling the family trust, leaving them penniless. Jack sneered, bloodsucker. Mom pleaded, unity. Dad just nodded, defeated. Papers drawn by week's end. My signature sealing their exit, equity mine. The hearth stood taller, unburdened, but the yum lingered. Had I avenged or amputated? April bloomed vicious, pollen choking the air like unresolved grudges, and the hearth became my fortress, brick walls echoing with laughter from packed patisseries, the scent of proofing bread a balm against the barbs. I'd bought out the family stake with a banker's smile and a lawyer's clause. Non-compete for Jack's, oversight for Mom and Dad's, advisory roles. They took it bitter. Mom's hugs turned stiff, Dad's nods mechanical, Jax's absence a screaming void. You're cutting us out, he'd accused at the signing, pen hovering like a guillotine. Like we're nothing. I met his eyes, steady. You taught me that, bro. Nothing's everything when it's stolen. The shop evolved under my thumb. Weekend workshops teaching knife skills to at-risk kids from the projects, partnerships with local farms for hyper-seasonal flowers. Revenue climbed. A Brooklyn magazine feature dubbing me the Dough Whisperer, Poppy Harlan's rise from ruin. Interviews followed, podcasts, panels, me in tailored jeans and a flour-dusted tee, spinning the tail sand skeletons. Family biz is messy, but legacy? That's the fight. They lapped it up, the American myth of grit and grace, but inside, the betrayal festered, a low hum under the clink of espresso cups. Jax's flips didn't stop, they went underground. Whispers from suppliers. Heat surfaced in Queens, consulting for a startup creperie, poaching Hearth alums with promises of real innovation. I ignored it, focused on the climax brewing. A Hearth anniversary gala, 5 years since Grandpa's passing, black tie in the expanded dining room. Invites went out citywide. Influencers, critics, even Maria, my olive branch or landmine. Closure. I told Lila over Lamingtons, her tattoos flexing as she iced. Or explosion. Prep consumed us. Custom molds for a 7-layer cake symbolizing the Harlan Strata, bittersweet chocolate for betrayals, raspberry coulis for blood. Rico grumbled about fancy bullshit, but baked till blisters rose. Mom RSVP'd yes, Dad too, Jackson maybe scrawled in Sharpie. Tension thickened like roux. Staff tiptoed around my moods, the yum air electric with what-ifs. The night arrived storm-lashed, rain sheeting against windows like judgment. The space transformed, fairy lights strung from rafters, tables groaning under charcuterie and canapes, a jazz trio crooning Ellington in the corner. Guests milled, foodies in Louboutins, neighbors in heirloom pearls, toasting to roots and rebirth. I worked the room in a vintage sheath, hair pinned with Grandpa's hearth pin, smile a weapon. Maria arrived early, elegant in emerald, no grudge in her grip. Smells like him, she said, nodding to the ovens. We talked Tyler, his laugh, his sketches. Raw but real, the crime I'd borne cracking open to air. Mom and Dad filtered in, polished but peaked, air-kissing cheeks like distant cousins. Beautiful, Poppy, Mom murmured, eyes glassy. Dad clapped shoulders. Numbers man turned mingler. Jax? Fashionably late, bursting through doors with entourage. The brunette influencer on his arm. A slick agent type, laughter loud as thunder. Flip, from sideline to star, commandeering the bar with tales of the Harlan saga. I watched, gut twisting, as he held court. Poppy's the genius, but me? I lit the fuse. The polarizing moment ignited over dessert. Toast circled, Rico's gravelly, to the hands that need, mine measured. To legacies we fight for, even when they fight back. Jax commandeered the mic next, glass raised, voice booming. To family, the fuckers who break you, then beg you to fix them. Laughter rippled, uneasy, then he flipped, venom sweet. And to Poppy, who took my fall so I could rise. The real hero? Nah, the survivor. Gasps sucked oxygen. Eyes swiveled to me. The crash, out loud, raw on gala night. Chaos erupted soft. Whispers like wildfires. Phones slipping out for notes apps. Mom froze. Wine spilling red as accusation. Dad lunged. Jack's enough. But he plowed on, chameleon in confessional mode. I killed Tyler. Poppy confessed. Parents covered. And the bakery? My Hail Mary that bombed. But look, we're here, flawed as fuck, American as apple pie gone wrong. Polarizing perfection, no villains, just villains we'd all played. Guests split, some nodding empathy, redemption arc, others murmuring outrage, tone deaf much? I crossed the floor slow, heart hammering, mic snatched from his slack grip. Flawed? Try fractured. Voice steady, broadcast live on the shop's Insta. Jax drove drunk, killed a kid. I lied for him. 2 years caged so he could play entrepreneur. Parents? Buried it, then handed him my dream to fix him. The room held breath. Maria's eyes met mine, steel softening. He ruined it, embezzled, flipped visions till it crumbled. They crawled back and I rebuilt. Not for them, for Grandpa. For Tyler. Twist of the knife. And yeah, I tipped the feds, leaked the lies. Revenge? Call it justice. Or spite. You decide. Jax deflated, entourage evaporating. Mom sobbed into Dad's lapel. Guests fractured, half applauding my grit, half decrying the family smear. Cops weren't called. No crime confessed beyond statutes, but the internet ignited. Harlan drama trending, op-eds debating. Is confession catharsis or cruelty? I shut it down gentle. Doors locked at midnight, stragglers ushered with doggy bags. Cleanup crew worked silent, Rico muttering, boys got stones, but soft head. Aftermath crashed like hangover. Morning headlines. Bakery blood. Harlan heir spills secrets at soiree. Boycotts threatened from purists. Too messy for my morning muffin, but orders surged from voyeurs. Taste the drama, delivery spikes. Jax vanished again. Radio silence broken by a single text. You win. But at what cost? Mom called, voice hollow. Was it worth it, Poppy? The truth. It hurts. Dad emailed resignation. Advisory over. Heal. I archived. Unbothered on surface, but the yum clawed. Had I avenged or atomized us? Maria's follow-up came unexpected. Coffee at a neutral diner, her treat. You didn't have to name him, she said, stirring sugar slow. But you did. For me. I shrugged, honest. For me. Carrying it alone. It poisoned everything. She nodded, packed unspoken. Twist is, kid, truth doesn't heal. It just levels. We parted allies, her number saved for the what-ifs. Jax resurfaced mid-May, leaner, eyes haunted, at my door with a duffel and defeat. Therapy's kicking my ass, he admitted, no charm, just Jax raw real. The flips? Coping. Crash broke me. Your sacrifice shamed me. I schemed to outrun it. Flip final. Enemy to equal, maybe. Let me work. No title, no take. Prove it. Controversial hire. Blood over sense. But I nodded. Apron tossed his way. One shift. Fuck up your ghost. Summer simmered in. The hearth a pressure cooker of tentative thaw. Jax needed silent. Flips muted to questions. This dough, why the salt bloom? Mom visited sporadic. Cookies as peace offerings. Dad audited from afar. Reports neutral. Success swelled. Pop up in the high line. Merch teas with need-to-know basis. But the tension strung us taut. Every laugh laced with landmines. Then the real twist brewed, dark as rye. An envelope unmarked, slipped under the door. Inside, court papers, Tyler's family suing. Not for the crash, barred by time, but for defamation, claiming Jax's gala spill re-traumatized them, naming me co-defendant for enabling the spectacle. Polarizer supreme, victims versus truth-tellers, justice versus vengeance. Lawyers circled, fees mounting. The hearth teetered, boycotts real now from sympathy crowds. I faced Jax over the proofers, steam veiling us. Your confession? Our end? He shook head, steady for once. Our beginning. Fight it together. Mom and Dad echoed in texts. We're in. The decision loomed, controversial core. Settle and silence, or battle and bleed. America's gamble, lawsuits as legacy, truth as toxin. June scorched Brooklyn, asphalt shimmering like grudges under the sun, and the lawsuit landed like a federal heatwave. Subpoenas served amid the lunch rush, process servers dodging strollers for signatures. The hearth didn't close. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, we baked through it. Stress relief sourdoughs, litigation loaves, whispered jokes among staff, each sale a fuck you to fate. But the yum deepened, shadows lengthening with every deposition notice, every viral thread dissecting our dysfunction porn. The plaintiff's angle twisted sharp. Maria's sister spearheading, claiming the gala, exploited grief for PR, my truth bomb complicit in the circus. No money grab, just injunctions to shutter the hearth. Gag orders on the Harlan name. Polarizing as hell, justice for Tyler camps clashing with free speech feast. Op-eds raging from shut down the trauma mill to Baker's right to rise. I scrolled late nights on the fire escape, cig burning low, wondering if this was the revenge apex, the pyre I'd lit consuming me too. Jax stepped up, surprisingly solid. Shifts on time, dough hands steady, his flips fossilized into focus. This is on me, he'd say, scrubbing counters post-close, voice stripped bare. The gala? My Hail Mary gone rogue. But we're Harlans, we fight dirty. We prepped together, him charming our lawyer, a pit bull from Flatbush with billable hours that bled the till, me crowdsourcing defense fund via a GoFundMe laced with recipes. Need justice. Bake for the truth. Donations poured, old customers, podcasters, even a celeb chef who'd feuded with worse. Maria? Neutral, her silence a scalpel. Mom and Dad reconvened, not crawling but crawling adjacent, weekly strategy sessions in the office. Mom brought Tupperware tamales, for strength, her pearls back, but eyes haunted. Dad crunched scenarios, settle low, or trial spectacle. Their decisions flipped too, from absentee to advocates, pushing trial for vindication. Controversial? Mom's midnight call, voice whiskey warm. I covered for him, Poppy. Your father too. We all bore it, but you broke first. Forgive. I didn't, not yet, but I let her stay, folding dough side by side, the rhythm a fragile truce. The climax crested in July, court day to swelter in downtown Manhattan, federal building air-conditioned to Arctic. We filed in full Harlan, me in crisp linen, Jax scrubbed near respectable, parents flanking like mismatched bodyguards. The gallery buzzed, reporters, rubberneckers, Tyler's photos projected large, his smile accusing. Plaintiff's counsel, a shark in pinstripes, painted us villains. Exploitation of tragedy for tart sales. Evidence mounted, gala clips, my Insta toast, Jax's pre-confession texts begging silence. Our turn, raw testimony, no polish. Jax first, voice cracking on the stand. I drove. I killed. Poppy confessed 'cause she loved me stupid. Parents buried it 'cause they loved me flawed. The hearth? My redemption grift that bombed, till she rebuilt it honest. Flips exposed, his schemes, the will contest, embezzlements laid bare. I flipped to survive shame. But truth? It sticks. Mom followed, tears unscripted. We chose wrong. Jax over Poppy, lies over light. American parents, chasing the dream, blind to the nightmare. Dad's numbers grounded it. Debts paid, restitution ongoing, no profit from pain. My testimony sealed or shattered. Under oath, lights harsh, I faced the judge, the room, the ghost. I took the fall 'cause blood's thicker than bars. Betrayed? Deep as marrow, they gave him my soul, watched him torch it. Revenge?
I likt, I litigated, I lived lauder.
But right? Wrong? That's the American lie, we're all gray, needing redemption from ruin. The twist dropped soft. Plaintiffs want silence? Fine. But Tyler deserved voice first. I name the fund. Proceeds to drunk driving prevention, Harlan branded. Not penance, promise. The room split audible. Gasps, nods, a reporter's cough. Counsel objected, self-serving. But the judge, a grizzled Italian with Brooklyn in his vowels, leaned in. Miss Harlan, that's novel. Recess stretched eternal. We huddled in the hall, Jax's hand on my shoulder. First touch in months. Tentative. Proud, Pops. Mom hugged fierce. Dad's, well played, gravel soft. Verdict landed August 1st, humidity breaking to blue skies. No injunction, gag lifted with caveats. Narrative controlled, no monetizing the mess. The fund? Mandated 10% of hearth profits earmarked, plaque by the door. Tyler's rise, from ashes to advocacy. Polarizers delight. Headlines hailed Baker's bold justice, or damned PR Pyrrhic victory. Boycotts fizzled. Crowds swelled, curious converts biting into redemption rye. Fall gilded the edges, leaves crunching under deliveries, the hearth a phoenix mid-molt. Jack stayed, promoted to manager, controversial trust, but earned in sweat, his flips now flavors. What if we twist the babka with theater? Mom baked weekends, Dad audited pro bono. Maria consulted on the fund, her input sharp assault. Success? Steady climb. Second location scouted in Harlem. Book deal whispers for need and confess. But the ending twisted final, debate sparking, one crisp November eve, closing solo, ovens cooling to size. Jax lingered, wiping counters, voice low. The crash file, unsealed last week. Statute's dead, but they know. Who? The judge, probing deeper post-verdict. No charges, he clarified, eyes flicking to mine. But truth's out. All of it. Including my perjury, the lie that locked me up. Panic flickered, then steadied. Charges? Unlikely. Time. Tears. The fund's goodwill. But the cost? Legacy laced with legal shadow. Every loaf a reminder. I locked up, Jack's at my side. Streetlights pooling gold. Worth it, he asked, echo of Mom's old query. I shrugged, arm linking his sister to survivor. Happily ever afters for fairy tales. This? It's ours. Ugly, unbroken. We walked into the night, Brooklyn breathing around us, the hearth's glow fading behind. No tidy bow, no full villain vanquished, just Harlan's, scarred and stitching, debating dawn over dough. Revenge? It baked us whole or hollow. You tell me.